This is my story of betrayal. I'm 33 and she's 29. We call Israel our home, where we have a 2-year-old son. I moved to Israel at the age of 17. I have made it a rule to visit my relatives and childhood friend in my native country every few years. Before the upcoming trip, I created a profile on a dating site, specifying my hometown as my location, and began to prepare for my arrival. By the time I was about to leave, I had collected about 10 photos of the girls who approached me. When I arrived, I started dating girls from my list. This was the third girl I met who caught my attention, and I decided to continue my relationship with her. We dated for a month, and in the summer I invited her to celebrate the new year with me. She agreed and spent a month with me, during which I proposed to her. To my delight, she agreed. We were planning to get married in April, and we started preparing for our wedding. We got married before moving to Israel together. I work as an electronics engineer and have a stable, albeit average income. For the first 6 months of our marriage, we lived with my parents because of the 2008 crisis, which left me temporarily out of work. Fortunately, I found a job, and we moved into a rented apartment, starting our lives as 2 loving partners. I was working, and she focused on learning the language and eventually got a job at a grocery store. Despite her impressive academic background, graduating from university with honors and working as a teaching assistant at a mortgage agency during her studies, she felt depressed working in the retail industry in Israel, especially after previously holding the position of department head in her homeland. We didn't let despair get the better of us, and she enrolled in a logistics course to get a local qualification. I graduated from the courses and started looking for a job in my specialty. We established a trusting relationship, and she admitted that the owner of the grocery store began to show interest in her. He was a 48-year-old businessman, divorced and seemingly attractive for his age, but she turned him down. 3 years have passed, and our boy was born. After a 3-month maternity leave, she returned to the store, but soon quit in an effort to find a job more appropriate to her specialty. However, finding a job turned out to be difficult because no one wanted to consider her work experience. In the end, she managed to get a job in a warehouse at an electronics factory in her specialty, but the work was tedious and the pay was minimal. Now let's talk about our relationship. We rarely quarreled, and if we did, we usually made up the next day. However, after the birth of our child, the spark in our relationship began to fade. Our intimacy became infrequent, and there was no previous passion in it. I was afraid that if I lost my way, the truth would come out sooner or later, and I didn't want to separate our family or hurt someone I loved. Instead, I began to devote more time to my hobbies and friendships, resigned to the fact that the initial passion was fading. I understood that this was not my first relationship, and I knew that over time the passion could fade. No matter what, I loved her deeply. She was always my closest friend. Throughout our 5 years of marriage, my wife never gave me any reason to feel jealous. I was completely oblivious to the fact that she could betray my trust. How naive I was, believing in the strength of our bond. In our 6th year of marriage, my wife told me that the owner of the grocery store had reached out to her again, this time offering her a job at an insurance company. He suggested meeting at a cafe to discuss the details. Being the naive fool that I was, I didn't think twice and let it happen. After their meeting, she returned home and mentioned that he was opening an office in Haifa soon and would be in touch with her in a month. Then came another message from her. Henry, the same man, just called me again. He wants to meet tonight because he has a more specific offer. She planned to meet him later that evening to discuss it all. As the evening unfolded, I received a message from her saying, Henry, I'm at a restaurant with him, talking about work. He's so busy on the phone. I'll be late. That's when reality began to dawn on me. I called a friend who worked for a cellular company and asked him to track her location. To my horror, she was in a completely different restaurant. Naturally, I started calling her, expressing my anger and annoyance at the lie. She returned home pretty quickly, obviously drunk. We had a big fight the first time. In the end, I calmed down and made it clear, either me or this job. In a cold tone, she replied, "I'll think about it," and went to bed. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. The next morning, she texted me from work, saying, "Henry, I need you to calm down." Nothing happened with him. We talked like friends. There was nothing between us, and my conscience is clear. I just need some time to figure out what I want in life because it's short, and I want to enjoy it to the fullest. Later, I discovered that she had also confided in him about needing to think things over. I took a closer look at her call logs, and there were constant calls and messages to him. Then I found a photo of her sitting in a hotel with a glass of wine. It turned out they'd been having an affair for a month and a half, mostly hooking up in his car on the way home from work. He had even driven her to the hotel once, if not more. Overwhelmed with rage, I packed my things and went to stay with my parents. The typical drama ensued: tears, apologies, and her begging me not to leave. I left but returned the next day when she expressed her desire for me to stay and asked for time to think. A week later, we had a long conversation. She admitted that when the passion in our relationship faded, she mistakenly thought that love had vanished too, and she started seeing me more like a brother. That man had initially shown interest in her career, but soon enough, he was trying to take things further. He wanted her to leave me, promising her an apartment and a new life together. Despite that, she continued living with me, waiting for her Israeli citizenship. With only a month to go, we had to go to the Interior Ministry together to finalize things. When I asked why she hadn't left me yet, she admitted that she realized he was just using her. She didn't know what to do. Return home to her parents, with whom she had no special relationship, or continue her life with me. She said that she imagined life without me and realized that she really cared about me. Like a naive fool, I was overjoyed. It seemed like she probably broke off all relations with him because I was watching her closely, and she didn't give me any reason to be suspicious. We returned home straight from work, went shopping with the child on weekends, and everything seemed to be back to normal. I've put aside all my hobbies and devoted my time entirely to my family. We had another serious conversation, and I made it clear that all her excuses were just that, excuses. I knew all the nonsense surrounding her infidelity wasn't worth my energy, so I decided to give her a chance. This would be the only one, a final opportunity. 4 months have passed since I discovered her betrayal. During this time, I started focusing on myself. I came to realize that I am the center of my own universe, and I need to prioritize loving and caring for myself and our child. I've been taking care of my physical health by hitting the gym regularly. As a result, I've grown tougher and more assertive with her, making it clear that I'm no longer afraid of losing her. I won't let her take me for granted. Throughout this period, she has been trying to portray herself as the perfect wife, constantly seeking to please me and professing her love. I can see the spark in her eyes returning, but I'm not falling for it entirely. Trust is still a fragile thing between us. I'm taking a wait-and-see approach. She expresses remorse, claiming she was foolish, admitting that betraying me was the biggest mistake of her life, and assuring me she will do everything possible to salvage our family. Early in our relationship, she vowed that if she ever decided to cheat, I would be the first to know. She genuinely believed her words back then, and perhaps she still does. However, I've developed my own independent stance. Growing up without a father, I realized that I hadn't acted like the head of our family before all of this happened. I wasn't the leader or the example she needed. But now, I'm changing, and I can see that she appreciates it. I've decided not to end our relationship just yet because I'm curious to see if we can rebuild what was lost. I'm accustomed to learning from my mistakes and striving to improve myself. If she ever strays again, however, it will be a one-way ticket to divorce without any compromises. Now I understand how a cheating partner operates. If I ever suspect her again, I'll take her for a polygraph test, and she knows it. Refusing that test will mean divorce. If she slips up again, I will walk away with peace of mind, knowing I did everything I could to save our family. Generally, I'm trying to stress less about it all. I'm living by the principle of doing what I can and accepting whatever comes next.